They called black folks narcissists. Not because we were arrogant, but because we stopped apologizing for being alive. They labeled our confidence as cockiness, our self-love as self-obsession, our joy as too loud, our pain as too much. They saw our pride in our culture as a threat. But what they'll never say out loud is this: they were never afraid of our ego. They were afraid of our awakening. Because when a black soul rises from trauma, when a black mind breaks free from manipulation, when a black heart begins to heal, that's when the lies start falling apart. You see, for too long we were conditioned to stay small, taught to whisper our brilliance, told that humility meant hiding. But now, we speak with thunder, we walk with grace, we know our worth, and we wear it like armor. This isn't narcissism, this is restoration. This is what happens when broken chains become golden crowns. They say we're full of ourselves, but we say we're finally full after centuries of being drained. They say we're self-centered, but we say we're finally centered in truth. Because the truth is this: they were fine with us being servants, background characters, emotional support. But the moment we took center stage in our own stories, they got uncomfortable. Because they can't use what they can't define, and they can't control what knows its own name. Let's be clear, we are not narcissists. We are survivors. We are not delusional. We are descendants of greatness. We are not ego-driven. We are spirit-led. We are the answered prayers of ancestors. We are the reflection of royalty. We are the prophecy they tried to erase. But we came back with fire in our eyes and wisdom in our bones. We are not narcissists. We are no longer broken. We are not narcissists. We are no longer broken. For far too long, society has tried to paint black people as self-centered, arrogant, or overly proud, all because we dared to reclaim our confidence, our dignity, and our self-worth. The moment we began to heal, to stand tall in the fullness of who we are, we became a threat. But the truth is, what they mistake for narcissism is actually a profound reclamation of self. It's the result of generations of black people who have had to fight for the right to exist, to be seen, to be heard. We are not narcissists. We are a people who have risen from the ashes of systemic oppression, trauma, and erasure. What they see as arrogance is the beautiful, powerful, necessary act of healing. For centuries, black people were forced to be invisible, to apologize for existing in a world that was not made for us. We were taught to shrink, to be quiet, to make others comfortable at the expense of our own identity and self-expression. Our bodies were marginalized, our voices silenced, and our beauty disregarded. We were taught to see ourselves as less than, to accept the narrative of inferiority that was written for us, and to accept it as truth. But something changed, something awakened within us, and we began to see ourselves in the way we were always meant to see ourselves, not through the lens of society's expectations or limitations, but through the lens of our own worth, beauty, and potential. This awakening wasn't narcissism, it was survival. It was the first step toward healing, toward reclaiming the parts of us that had been stolen, suppressed, or ignored. It was a refusal to be broken any longer. It was a declaration that we would no longer let the world define our worth based on the stereotypes, lies, and historical wounds that have been imposed upon us. Our healing is not a signal of arrogance. It's a declaration of our right to exist fully, to be proud of who we are, and to live in the light of our own truth. And that truth is not one of inferiority. It is not one of weakness. It is a truth that says we are strong, resilient, and beautiful beyond measure. And we have every right to take up space in this world. When we began to love ourselves, when we started to speak our truth unapologetically, others were uncomfortable. They weren't used to seeing black people stand in their power. They were used to seeing us humbled, broken, or struggling, but not thriving, not standing tall, not taking ownership of our worth. So when we began to do just that, they labeled us narcissists. They couldn't handle our strength because it threatened their narrative. But it wasn't about them. It was about us. It was about the generations that came before us, the ancestors who survived unimaginable pain and hardship so that we could live with dignity. It was about honoring their sacrifice by standing tall and unapologetically embracing who we are. We are not narcissists. We are not obsessed with ourselves. We are simply no longer broken. We have learned to embrace our full humanity, to celebrate our bodies, our minds, our histories, and our cultures without shame. We are no longer afraid to walk in the fullness of who we are. We are healing the wounds of generations, and that healing has transformed us. It has allowed us to see ourselves as the powerful, beautiful, and brilliant people that we have always been. This is not narcissism. It is the act of becoming whole again, of reclaiming what was stolen, and of walking in the legacy of those who came before us, with pride and honor. They may label us as narcissists, but what they truly fear is not our confidence, but the fact that we are no longer broken. They fear the power we hold when we are whole, when we are standing tall, when we are unapologetically ourselves. And that fear is not a reflection of our arrogance, but of their discomfort with the strength and beauty of Black people who have finally remembered who they are. We are no longer broken, and we are not sorry for it. We are no longer the shadows they once cast us as. We are the light that shines brightly, unapologetically, and boldly, and we will continue to rise. What they can't define, they try to dismiss. What they can't define, they try to dismiss. This has always been the strategy when it comes to Black excellence, Black power, and Black identity. For centuries, the world has been uncomfortable with the depth and complexity of Black culture, Black intellect, and Black spirit. Rather than seek understanding, they've chosen to dismiss it. Rather than embrace the beauty of our complexity, they've reduced us to stereotypes, labels, and misconceptions. They've feared what they don't understand, so instead of acknowledging the fullness of who we are, they've tried to erase, silence, and disregard our existence. But the truth is, what they can't define isn't something to be afraid of, it's something to be celebrated. When they can't define our brilliance, they try to discredit it. They question our achievements, downplay our successes, and try to make it seem like we've somehow gotten lucky, or that our accomplishments don't have the weight they truly carry. When a Black person excels in art, business, science, or any other field, they are often seen as an exception, a one-off, or even a fluke. But the reality is, our excellence is not accidental. It is the result of generations of resilience, strength, creativity, and determination. It is the result of a lineage that refused to be broken, a lineage that has always found ways to rise, even in the face of oppression. But because they don't understand the depth of that legacy, they try to dismiss it. They don't want to acknowledge the fact that our brilliance has been here all along, hidden in plain sight. Instead of defining us by the fullness of who we are, they reduce us to labels that make them feel more comfortable. When they can't define our beauty, they try to undermine it. They've told us for years that our hair, our skin, our features are inferior, unkempt, or less than. They've told us that we must conform to their standards of beauty if we want to be accepted. They've made us feel as though our natural selves were not enough. But now, more than ever, we see the beauty in who we are. We are reclaiming our natural hair, our rich, dark skin, our unique features, and we are doing so unapologetically. We are no longer asking for permission to be beautiful on our own terms. But when they can't define our beauty, when they can't fit it into the narrow box of what society has deemed acceptable, they try to dismiss it. They call it too much, too wild, too bold. They make us feel like we need to apologize for showing up as ourselves. But we will not shrink to fit their narrow definitions of beauty. We are rewriting the narrative, and we are standing proudly in the beauty that comes with our authenticity. When they can't define our culture, they try to erase it. They take our music, our dance, our art, our language, and they try to claim it as their own. They commodify what they cannot fully understand, and in doing so, they strip it of its true meaning. They take the pieces of us that they find valuable, but they discard the parts they find inconvenient. But what they fail to realize is that our culture is not just a trend, it is the pulse of our people, the heartbeat of our ancestors, and the foundation of our future. It is woven into every note of our music, every rhythm of our dance, every stroke of our paintbrush, every word we speak. Our culture cannot be erased. It cannot be diminished. It cannot be reduced to a trend. When they can't define it, they try to dismiss it, but they will never succeed. The truth is, the inability to define us comes from a place of fear, a place of ignorance, and a place of deep insecurity. They fear what they cannot control, and they fear what they cannot fully understand. But we are not here to be defined by anyone else's standards. We are not here to fit into the boxes that others have created for us. We are here to define ourselves. We are here to stand in our truth, our power, and our brilliance. What they can't define, they will try to dismiss, but in the end, it is their dismissal that will be their undoing. Our worth, our beauty, our power, and our culture will never be reduced to anything less than magnificent. And no matter how much they try to dismiss us, we will continue to rise, continue to thrive, and continue to redefine what it means to be black in this world. We are not defined by their labels, their misconceptions, or their fears. We are defined by our truth, our resilience, and our undeniable strength. And that cannot be dismissed. The power of a healed black identity, the power of a healed black identity, is something the world has yet to fully understand. For centuries, black people have been told who they are, where they belong, and what they deserve. We've been told that our worth was determined by external systems, by the color of our skin, by the slurs used to define us, by the spaces we were denied, and by history that tried to erase us. But there comes a time when the whispers of these falsehoods no longer carry weight. There comes a time when a people, finally seeing their reflection, no longer recognize the distorted version of themselves that the world tried to mold them into. The power of a healed black identity lies in the ability to break free from that distortion and reclaim what was always ours to begin with. A healed black identity isn't just about self-acceptance or self-love. It's about the reclamation of history, culture, and legacy. It's about knowing that we were not born into this world to serve or to be small, but to lead, to thrive, and to exist with a sense of purpose. When black people heal, they stop asking for permission to take up space. They stop apologizing for their brilliance. The healed black identity no longer seeks validation from a system that has historically refused to see us as equals, but rather stands firm in the knowledge that we are worthy of every blessing, every opportunity, and every dream. We are not just surviving, we are meant to flourish. The power of a healed black identity is in its ability to rewrite narratives. It's the story of a people who were stripped of their names, their languages, their traditions, and their freedom, now standing tall and declaring their existence as one of royalty. It's the story of ancestors who were taken from their homelands, torn from their families, and forced into the darkest chapters of history, but whose spirits still find a way to rise. A healed black identity doesn't see itself as the product of trauma. It sees itself as the product of triumph. The scars of the past are not a mark of shame, but a badge of resilience. Every struggle, every obstacle, every injustice faced along the way has only strengthened the fabric of the black soul. When we heal, we remember that we come from kings and queens, warriors and scholars, healers and visionaries. We remember that our roots are not just buried in soil, they are buried in the wisdom of those who walked before us, those who fought for us, and those who dreamed of this day when we would awaken to our true power. The healed black identity doesn't need the world's approval to stand tall. It stands tall because it knows where it came from and where it's going. It knows that its value was never tied to external recognition, but to the inherent strength, beauty, and wisdom woven into every fiber of our being. The power of a healed black identity also lies in its ability to transform the world around it. It's the energy that shifts the atmosphere when black people walk into a room, not as guests, but as owners. It's the creative force that builds empires, creates art, shapes culture, and leads communities toward greatness. When black people heal, they no longer see themselves as victims. They see themselves as visionaries, as change makers, as architects of a new world. The healed black identity knows that it was not created to blend in or conform. It was created to stand out, to challenge systems, to break barriers, and to create a new path for the generations that follow. In a world that constantly tries to define us by our pain, the power of a healed black identity is that we redefine ourselves. We reclaim the narrative that has been stolen from us and replace it with one that reflects our true essence. We are not defined by the struggles we've faced, but by the strength we've gained from overcoming them. The healed black identity understands that its power is not in fighting the world, but in changing it through love, resilience, and purpose. It is a force that cannot be denied, a presence that demands respect, and a voice that will not be silenced. The power of a healed black identity is the most revolutionary force the world will ever witness. It is the shift from victimhood to victory, from pain to power, from silence to song. And as more black people heal, the world will be forced to reckon with the truth. We are not broken, we are whole, and we are unstoppable. We are healing, not harming. They look at us and call it harm, but what they're witnessing is healing. They say we've become difficult, too loud, too proud, but they're misreading our restoration as rebellion. The truth is, we are healing, not harming. We're not out to hurt anyone. We're just refusing to be hurt anymore. We're no longer making ourselves small to make others feel big. We're no longer apologizing for our presence, our identity, or our voice. That's not aggression. That's recovery. That's resurrection. For generations, we were taught to be quiet, to keep our heads down, to endure. We were taught that survival meant silence, that dignity was earned through suffering. But now, we're unlearning that. We're healing the wounds passed down through bloodlines, wounds from slavery, from segregation, from systems built to strip us of our humanity. And healing isn't neat. Healing isn't polite. Healing doesn't always look like what others are used to. Sometimes healing looks like drawing boundaries where there used to be open wounds. Sometimes healing sounds like a voice that trembles but speaks anyway. Sometimes healing feels like fire, because for the first time, we are burning off what was never ours to carry. They call our healing harmful because it changes the dynamics. Because when we heal, we no longer play the role they wrote for us. We no longer exist to make others comfortable. We no longer say yes when we mean no. We no longer smile through pain. And for those who benefited from our silence, our healing feels like loss. But that's not our burden to carry. Our healing isn't revenge, it's release. We're not trying to punish anyone. We're just choosing ourselves, sometimes for the very first time. When a people begin to heal, they begin to see clearly. And when black people see clearly, we recognize what we've survived and what we deserve. We stop settling. We stop performing. We stop begging for spaces that were never meant to hold us. That kind of clarity is powerful. And yes, it shakes the room, because a healed mind doesn't entertain lies. A healed heart doesn't cling to dysfunction. A healed spirit walks away from anything that doesn't honor its worth. That's not harm. That's holiness in motion. We are not weaponizing our wounds. We are tending to them. We are not turning our pain into pride. We're turning it into purpose. When we say no more, it's not a war cry. It's a whisper of freedom. When we stop engaging with toxic systems, relationships, and expectations, it's not rejection. It's redirection. We're finding our way back to who we were before the world told us we were too much or not enough. That journey may confuse people. It may offend those who expected us to stay broken, but we were never made to stay in pieces. Healing is disruptive. It shifts the atmosphere. It changes conversations. It challenges comfort zones. But that's exactly what it's supposed to do. Because we can't heal by pretending. We can't grow by staying in the same cycles. And we can't thrive by continuing to shrink. So no, we are not harming. We are healing. And we are doing it out loud. We are walking away from generational pain and choosing generational peace. We are not what they tried to make us. We are who we were destined to become. And if our healing challenges the narrative, then so be it. If our light makes others squint, let them adjust. We're not dimming it anymore. We are healing, and that healing is sacred. It's necessary. It's powerful. And most of all, it's ours. The mislabeling of black confidence. They called us narcissists. But what they really meant was, we were no longer broken. The moment black people began to reclaim our confidence, to speak with boldness, to walk with dignity, something shifted. And that shift made the world uncomfortable. Because the world, especially the systems that were never designed for us to thrive, is not used to seeing black confidence in its raw, unapologetic, and divine form. They prefer the broken version of us, the compliant, the quiet, the uncertain. They prefer the version of us that second guesses our own brilliance, that asks for permission to be proud. But when we finally started to unlearn the shame they placed on us and stepped into self-worth, suddenly we were labeled as self-centered, arrogant, and narcissistic. That label doesn't come from truth. It comes from fear. Black confidence has always been misread. When we smile too brightly, they say we're doing too much. When we walk into a room with our heads high, they say we're being extra. When we speak truth to power, they say we're being aggressive. It's not about us being narcissistic. It's about a world that's uncomfortable with black self-assurance. Our confidence doesn't come from thin air. It's been earned. Earned through struggle, through history, through resistance, through carrying the weight of generations, and still choosing to rise. We've had to fight for every inch of self-love. Every step toward dignity was paved with sacrifice. So when we love ourselves now, when we celebrate our beauty, our culture, our intelligence, our resilience, that's not vanity, that's survival. The mislabeling of black confidence is intentional. It's part of the design to keep us small. Because if they can make us believe that being proud of ourselves is a bad thing, they can keep us trapped in cycles of doubt. If they can confuse self-awareness with arrogance, they can manipulate us into staying silent. And if they can convince us to question our own voices, they can continue to speak for us. But we're done playing that game. Our confidence is not for their comfort. It's for our healing. It's for our children. It's for the ancestors who never had the luxury of being bold out loud. There is a sacredness to black confidence. It's not just attitude, it's legacy. It's not just energy, it's ancestral memory, waking up inside of us. Every time a black man walks tall in a world that told him to shrink, that's confidence. Every time a black woman embraces her natural beauty, her voice, her brilliance, that's confidence. Every time we choose to speak our truth in rooms that tried to erase us, we are honoring a lineage that refused to die in silence. That's not narcissism. That's power. That's freedom. And yes, it shakes people. But that's not our concern anymore. The truth is, they call it narcissism because they don't have language for what it looks like when a people heal from centuries of being told they were less than human. They don't have words for the moment we stop surviving and start thriving. So they call it what they fear. But we know better now. We see through it. We won't water down our joy, our pride, or our purpose to soothe fragile egos. The mislabeling ends here. Because this confidence, this unapologetic, unstoppable, radiant black confidence, it's not just real, it's holy, and we're not sorry for it. Royal blood doesn't need to apologize. Royal blood doesn't need to apologize. We've been taught for too long that in order to be accepted, we must shrink, bend, and bow. We've been told that in order to belong, we must silence our brilliance, humble our voices, and apologize for our existence. But there comes a point when we realize that we are not here to seek permission, and we are certainly not here to apologize. The royal blood that runs through our veins, the legacy of kings and queens, warriors and leaders, will not be diminished by the pressures of a world that demands conformity. We are not here to beg for respect. We are here to command it, to own our space, and to walk in the fullness of our inheritance. The truth is that we've always been royalty, even when the world tried to strip us of our dignity, our culture, and our name. Royal blood isn't defined by the crowns we wear, the palaces we inhabit, or the riches we possess. It is defined by the strength within us, the legacy we carry, and the unshakable knowledge that we are descendants of greatness. Royalty isn't something you need to earn, it's something that you are born with. It's in your blood, your bones, and your spirit. It's in the fire that burns within you, and the wisdom that runs through your veins, and that blood does not need to apologize for its power. For too long, black people have been made to feel that their greatness was something to be ashamed of. We've been told that our beauty was a flaw, that our strength was a threat, and that our pride was arrogance. But we are waking up to the truth. We are starting to realize that the bloodline we come from is not just the bloodline of survival, it's the bloodline of victory. We come from a lineage of warriors who fought against oppression, kings and queens who ruled empires, and leaders who inspired revolutions. That royal blood has always been within us, even when the world tried to diminish it, even when they tried to break our spirits. Now we stand tall, we stand proud, and we don't owe anyone an apology for doing so. The time for shrinking is over, The time for hiding our light is over. The time for apologizing for our greatness is over. We are stepping into the fullness of who we are, and we are not asking for permission. Royalty does not beg for a seat at the table. It creates its own table, and invites others to sit at it. Royal blood doesn't apologize for the light, it shines. It lets that light illuminate the path for others to follow. The world may try to make us believe that humility means hiding our brilliance, that meekness means suppressing our power. But true humility isn't about denying our greatness. It's about owning it without arrogance, sharing it without fear, and walking in it without shame. We are not here to downplay our worth. We are not here to pretend that we are less than what we are. We are royalty, and we don't need to apologize for it. The royal blood that flows through us is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to be celebrated. Every time we step into a room and speak with confidence, every time we wear our culture with pride, every time we show up unapologetically in spaces where we've been historically excluded, we are honoring the royal blood that runs through our veins. We are not asking for permission to exist in spaces where we've been made to feel unwelcome. We are asserting our right to be there because we belong there, just as much as anyone else. Royal blood doesn't need to apologize for its presence, for its power, or for its pride. We are not just survivors. We are descendants of greatness. We are not just existing. We are living in the fullness of who we were always meant to be. And as we walk with our heads held high, we know that we are carrying the legacy of kings and queens, of warriors and visionaries. Our bloodline is one of strength, dignity, and unmatched power. And that royal blood, it doesn't need to apologize. It just needs to rise.